What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Daily Energy Newsbeat Stand-Up here on this gorgeous Tuesday, March 28th, 2023. As always, I'm your humble correspondent, Michael Tanner, coming to you from an undisclosed location here in Dallas, Texas, joined by the executive producer of the show, the purveyor of the show, and the director and publisher of the world's greatest website, EnergyNewsbeat.com, Stuart Turley. My man, how we doing today?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. We're going to have a great week.
No, we're going to have a great week. You have a great show for us lined up today, guys. We've got some absolute bangers for articles. First one we've got on the menu, no, unintended. The Ford F-150 Lightning test struggled in our towing test. If you don't know, F-150 and Ford is rolling out an electric version of the F-150, and obviously it didn't quite pass the towing test, so Stu will cover how much you can actually pull with that bad boy. Next up, Iraqi Kurdistan regional oil output is at risk after Turkey halts pipeline exports. This is fairly critical and really plays into the moves we saw in oil prices today. Stu will cover what's going on over in Turkey next. David, according to David Galluch, coming soon, the Shapiro energy tax. If you're a citizen of Pennsylvania, this is gonna you're gonna get, as Stu would say, take it in the shorts on this one. He'll cover what's going on.
They're gonna get you in the drive-through.
Gonna get you in the drive-through. Next up, guys, China's deep sea floating wind platform heads offshore. China not only is one of the biggest buyers of crude oil, but is also one of the biggest exporters and suppliers for wind farm materials and wind farms themselves. They're debuting a huge offshore wind platform. Stu will cover what that means for the global energy landscape. Next, American companies outrage after Mexican military police seize Caribbean facility. Quote, "This is insane." Stu had to explain to me how this fit into the show, so I'm just going to leave it at that and let him do that as this article comes. And next, finally, a classic. A Rivian buyer got his dream car after a 3-year wait. Days later, the car was dead and he faced a $2,100 bill. Absolutely incredible, guys. EVs continue to crush it. All of those articles will make up our news segment. Stu will then kick it to me, and I will cover quickly what happened in the oil and gas markets today. Oil up, natural gas down. I think there's a little bit of some insights to glean from that. And then we will let you guys get on and start your day. But before we do that, guys, as always, the articles that we're about to cover are courtesy the world's greatest website, www.energynewsbeat.com. Hit the description below and check out. You can also see the timestamps if you want to skip ahead and figure out what's going on with the Kurdish oil supply. You can, boom, hit the link, and you will be automatically transported there. It's like we basically invented time travel. Really, it's really what we've done with these show notes. With putting the show notes and the clickable links within the Spotify app, you can literally travel in time. So I'd recommend taking some time travel, figuring out what segment you want to do. But before you do that, hit dashboard.energynewsbeat.com. It's our data and news combo. Get it while it's still here. You never know, it might go somewhere. But I'm out of breath, Stu. I vote we get this show started. Where do you want to begin?
Hey, let's go ahead and start with, oh no, the Ford 150 Lightning struggled in our towing test. Okay, before we get started on this story, you know I'm a Ford guy. Love me a Ford.
I agree. Also, I drive an F-150.
I love me a Ford. Yeah, I missed my 250. I had a Ford 250, Ooh. Sold it. Hey, Michael, you're familiar with where my boat is here. And you know what they call the ramp when you're loading and unloading your boat?
Yep.
Divorce Hill.
I don't know what they call it.
They call it Divorce Hill. We would go over in our golf cart and we'd get a bunch of beer and we'd sit there and we'd watch all the men drive the boat in, and the women would back the trucks in, or the trailers, or vice versa. And it just a divorce. A man and a woman should be married. They should not vote together. So anyway, all right. That being said, Divorce Hill is actually the ramp. We're going to leave all that alone. So when you take a look at lithium batteries, they're saying that when you have a Ford 150 Lightning, it has consider how far you can go. This test was really, really good. And let's go through there. they were warned to expect the range to be cut in half when towing, but the effect of towing these travel trailers proved even more significant. Even with the smallest trailer, they measured a range of only 115 miles. That figure fell to 100-mile with a middleweight trailer and sank to 90 miles with a 7,200 pound. 7,000, that's almost nothing. I mean, think about that. With 775-pound torque on tap, the electric four-wheel shoves off from a stop smoothly and confidently. But it's the lithium batteries. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the heavier the heavier your load is, the less efficient your battery is going to be, because you're less fuel efficient if you've got more weight. So it's like, are we just going to defy, all of a sudden now EVs can defy the laws of physics? And nope, it's going to be just as strong.
My four-wheel drive Ford 250 got 9 miles to the gallon, actually 10 miles to the gallon. It was a V10, 10 miles to the gallon, towing a boat, not towing a boat. It was
V10.
Oh yeah, it was beautiful, man. I mean, that bad dog would go up walls. It would take down. Yeah, I mean, it was an
cruising.
Yeah, it was a bruiser. So anyway, but it never even noticed a boat behind it. So
yeah, anyway. So I think it'll be, I think it'll be interesting. I do think you're going to see a decent amount of demand for this, because I do think there's a marketplace for this. I think you're going to see companies I think you're going to see construction companies roll this out inefficiently, but that still means there's demand for it. So I do think these are going to, quote unquote, fly off the shelves.
I don't have a problem with electric. I think electric's going to be great eventually. I just don't. I'm looking for the new next battery technology that I think.
Would you buy one of these?
No.
What's next?
Okay. Iraqi Kurdistan region's oil output at risk after Turkey halts pipeline exports. Oil production in Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdistan region is at risk. 450,000 barrels per day of crude exports in this region. That's pretty amazing. I mean, they need that coming around through the Black Sea.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you guys an idea, Turkey halted that pumping of Iraqi crude from the pipeline after Iraq won an arbitration case in which it said Turkey had violated a joint agreement by allowing the Kurdistan regional government to export oil to Sana'a without Baghdad's consent. Oil firms operating in the region have been left in limbo as they await the outcome of the ongoing discussions between some town somewhere, Baghdad and RG, as they look away to resume exports. But this impending legal battle does not look good for getting that pipeline turned back on. That's 450,000 barrels, Stu, as you mentioned, being taken offline. We saw what it did to oil prices. They were all the way up to 72.91 on the cusp of 73. So all of a sudden, supply demand is now back. Everyone's all hot on supply demand now.
Oh yeah, it's you're one pipeline away from $100 oil. Oh wait, this is Goldman Sachs calling. Sorry.
Really? Because they need me on that Nat gas desk. They're dying for me on that Nat gas desk. All right, what do you got next?
Okay, let's go to the next one. This one is really kind of hilarious. The title of the article is David Galluch, coming soon, the Shapiro energy tax. This is out of Pennsylvania, Michael. Governor Josh Shapiro quietly acted to raise home heating and electricity costs for Pennsylvania families. It's officially termed the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI. I like the way the author called this. It should be called the Shapiro Energy Tax. Let's go through this here in a little bit, because it's called a cap and invest. This is really, talk about putting a a shell game out there for carbon tax. That they're trying to encourage people to conserve at home. So let's go through the scenario. The only thing purchasers, you buy credits. They would find itself missing billions of dollars from its budget, but they're planning on 2/3 of Pennsylvania's electricity comes from producers who will be hamstrung, but 100% of its insecurity will come from this. So what that means is that you're going to buy a cap and trade program with your electrical companies, and it's the consumers that get it in the drive-through on this.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a classic not thinking second order. And as Stu mentioned, we as the collective, aka the people in Pennsylvania, sorry, Paul Jerome, take it in the drive-through. Because think about this. This is the easiest thing to pass on to the consumer. They didn't. How did they not think about this? There wasn't somebody in the room when they came up with this that was like, let's just see if we've got a shortfall and people have to buy credits and it increases their cost. I wonder if these people are just going to absorb the cost internally. How about no? Like, what business absorbs the cost?
Right.
That's fine. The cost gets passed off to me. Don't make dumb rules like this.
This one's really dumb. So, wasn't Danny, it was in the movie with Mel Gibson and Danny Glover when they were in there, Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, and they were hauling this one accountant around, and he goes, they always get you in the drive-through. They always get you in the drive-through. That's exactly what this is.
Here's the thing. Under this, what is he calling it? The RGGI, and I'd recommend hitting the description below and checking out this article. What you're going to have happen is because of the way this cap and trade system is set up, you're basically introducing this carbon credit market within Pennsylvania that is going to be this weirdly unregulated trading of credits. That's the issue with cap and trade as a whole. As a whole, I like the idea of cap and trade. It's the idea is you have a total number of emissions you want, you load them up into as many number of credits as you want, and you deal them out accordingly, and then you let the free market trade them. The problem is there needs to be a little bit of regulation around that. It can't just be, oh, everybody go, because then it's the wild, wild west. Then you get, compensatory practices, manipulation, things like that it can get too out of hand. So yes, I think in theory, cap and trade is a pretty good economic solution, but it's naive to think that it's like in game theory. You make the assumption that every player is rational. The funny part is when you look at you try to play game theory on actual real life data sets, you can't take the assumption that you're playing with rational players because we don't make rational decisions.
No. Oh, it's Joe Pesci, by the way, that kept saying they always get you in the drive-through. All right. I got that going for me on my deathbed.
People in Pennsylvania are getting it hard in the drive-through. They're getting it automated in the drive-through.
Oh,
so now these drive-throughs are automated. What's next?
Okay. Hey, let's go to the next drive-through here. China's deep sea floating wind platform heads offshore. Michael, this story is absolutely a hoot, as we say in Texas. This thing is huge. Let's talk about some of the things on this floating platform for one wind turbine.
Yep.
Okay. It will generate 22 million kilowatts of clean energy annually and save nearly 10 million cubic meters of fuel gas, says Mingang Smart Energy. All right. That all sounds really good.
Mm-hmm.
You know what this gigantic one wind turbine is going out to support? An EMP oil derrick. This is going to be supplying electricity to oil derricks that are drilling oil and gas in the China Sea.
Well, I as much as I don't want to give credit to China for this brilliant idea, you have to. This, Stu, in my opinion, is one of the most brilliant moves you could do. Think about this, Stu.
Whoa, why? Explain to me.
No, time out.
Explain to me. Are you going to buy
What's the
credit?
hardest thing to get on an offshore oil rig?
Women.
Answer. What?
Women.
Okay, so yes, that you correct. You are absolutely correct. That's the first thing. The second thing, that's a good one. I didn't even think of that one. Okay, back on point. The second thing is fuel, power, electricity. Think about it. They have huge generators that take up huge amounts of space, that cause a huge amount of noise, that cause a huge amount of extra weight, when theoretically you could have that source right next to it and completely be self-sustainable in terms of how you do that. Personally, I think it's a brilliant idea. Do I think we should be doing this in the Gulf of Mexico? I don't know, but I think this is an interesting case study in what on paper seems like a really good idea to me.
This is like something that I believe would be in a movie, or a former Secretary of State is going to be teaching in a college about Benghazi and really how to make a decision. This is dumb. And I'm sitting here kind of going, when you take a look at this, Michael, okay, a rig drills what? Oil and gas. Offshore gets a lot of natural gas. Why don't you just burn, which they do on so many platforms, they burn their own natural gas.
Yeah, but it's going to say, okay, it's going to save you 22 million kilowatt hours and 10 million cubic feet of fuel gas, because you can't run those generators off the gas that you produce. That's a huge misconception. It's fuel gas, which has to be refined. So they're cutting out the middlemen. I think this is genius.
I could be persuaded. I still think it's a joke.
But I mean, I don't think this wind farm is going to power Houston, but I think a offshore wind farm that specifically is powering an offshore oil pad, I don't know. On paper, this seems to me kind of brilliant. You sent this story like 2 hours ago, and I was like, ooh, I don't know where I fall on this one. I actually am kind of thumbs up on it.
I disagree, and here's why. When you're out in the middle of a oil pad, A, you can't find anybody to date. B, you're sitting there and you're trying to, young single men on the derrick just absolutely are miserable. So old married guys are happy because they're, out there.
Yeah, that's your dream.
Yeah, the dream job. Hey, so when you sit back and take a look at it, you got one wind turbine that's you're putting electric motors out there, and you have one wind turbine for all these platforms. I think that's a failure. That is a single point of failure. There's only one that's going to support those. I call that a oops. No, I don't like the design on this.
All right. Well, we're going to agree to we're going to agree to disagree.
We're going to follow this story. We're going to follow this story, but
I can't wait till it turns out to be a genius idea.
Oh, that was another good one. I always love, what's his name? Lurch. Okay. Next story coming around the corner. American company outrage after Mexican military police seize Caribbean facility. This is insane. The article had me on, this is insane. Okay. So the seizure of an American company's quarry facility in Mexico by the Mexican military and local police has sparked outrage. Michael, it's the Vulcan Minerals Company, a Alabama-based company and the largest producer of construction aggregates. And you say, hey, Stu, why is this on here? It's not a real energy story. It is, in the standpoint that they are, Vulcan is using asphalt ready materials You can't build roads without them. I mean, they are very, very critical. And this is the same thing that can happen with lithium. It's the same thing that can happen with anything in the value chain for energy. And so
Mhm.
you just have to be careful. This is only step one. And
Yep.
especially with other things that we have going on with Mexico or anything in South America could be seized. That's why I suggested we bring this up and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, next thing you know, they'll be seizing this podcast.
Hola, ¿cómo está?
What's next, Stu?
That was actually funny. A Rivian buyer gets his dream car after 3-year wait. Days later, the car was dead and he faced a $2,100 bill. And Michael, for our podcast listeners, they need to go look at it in the show notes. They're standing in a snow. I mean, it's just buried. Rivian's customer service disappointed one early adopter in a time of need. I'm just not the right person to be an early adopter, he said.
I love it. I love it.
He said it was his favorite car he'd ever had. He got in Merrill 24, put down a deposit 3 years ago. Wow. He got behind an $85,000 car. Whew. I've never paid $85,000 for a car.
No.
Wow. I was in a honeymoon phase.
The new car bubble has burst. I think Carvana has shown that, and I wouldn't say the new car bubble, but really just the car bubble in general, because I think there was also a used car bubble as well. This whole the car bubble, I think, is something that has been bursting and probably bursted a little bit quarter 3, quarter 4 of last year. So it's interesting. People are paying $85,000 for a car they get 3 days of use out of. It's pretty bad ROI.
Yeah, I hit about 2.5 feet of snow and it stopped right there. The batteries got cold. So, oops. Yeah. I mean, batteries, when they either are towing or they get cold,
Yep.
Oops. So anyway, that's it for me. I mean, I was in rare form today.
And no, you're absolutely rare form. And if we learned anything, it's that being single on the rig is not fun.
Oh no, being married's good.
Being married's excellent. Cracks me up. Well, we'll kick it over to finance, guys. I think really the biggest thing to cover overall markets, SPY up 1/4 percentage point. NASDAQ actually tumbles about 3/4 percentage point. 30-year fixed down 1/10 percentage point. Excuse me, 1/10 percentage point. 10-year yields up 1.14 percentage points. Dollar index tumbles 1/4 percentage point, which leads to crude oil up really about 3.5 percentage points. Opened the day trading a little bit below 69. I think as we recorded yesterday's show, it was 69.92. Currently trading at 72.96. This has mainly due to, I think, 2 reasons. One, we see the dollar index down 1/4 percentage point, but mainly, as Stu covered in our opening segment, this pipeline shutdown in Turkey, which, and it'll be interesting to see kind of the fallout from that. It's only 450,000 barrels of crude oil, but it's oil that's already in the supply chain. I think that's the difference between, this and some potential demand. The reason why I think this has more of a impact on a day-to-day basis than all of this hoopla over, here's what China's going to buy, or here's what Russia may or may not produce. This 450,000 barrels was in the supply chain. It's cruising. It's cooking down pipelines. It's got refinery buyers put up. Now you take this off the market. That does impact a little bit that ground game a little bit. So I think this is why you see a little bit more of a significant impact, even though 450,000 barrels a day doesn't seem like much when you factor in that it's already baked into the supply chain, not necessarily a hypothetical like some of these other reports are that we've been seeing. I think it explains most of the movement, at least northward, for crude oil. On the other side, natural gas, it continues to sit here around $2.11. Over at Nat Gas Intel, again, one of my favorite places. We're just, as we loom, they say natural gas futures struggle amid loom towards expiry. We do expire here. in 3 days. So we will see that roll over to the next curve, which will be up a little bit, about $2.40, I believe, when we roll over. So we will see a little bit of a kick. But again, we could see that drop. On the nat gas storage side, we do expect somewhere between 38 to 76 BCF draw. Last year, we did actually see a 15 BCF build. So anything on a draw side would actually be fairly bullish. But right now, really, the oversupply is true. So it's going to be interesting to see where prices go. Again, as we roll over, we will see a little bit of an increase in that spot price, but not much going forward. I mean, that's really all I've got, Stu. There ain't much on the E&P side. It's kind of quiet. I think there's some moves out there that may or may not be interesting coming around the pike. I know you've smiled and you've heard some things, but I think mainly E&Ps are taking it a little bit slow right now. I think they're in plan mode. I think there's a lot of different really interesting things going on.
There are. We're about to see some things happen globally in the next 30 to 60 days, maybe 90, but it's going to be significant.
Well, with that, guys, mic drop. We're going to let you get out of here. Appreciate you guys checking us out and taking a wicked this whole way. For Stuart Turley, I'm Michael Tanner. See you tomorrow.
Damn.